rare and balanced view on politics in today's world. Based on facts, born of rationality, common sense, and logic, providing context on today's events, this is American Perspective with Rick Thomas.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to American Perspective. I am your host, Rick. Sorry, putting something in the... Anyway, so Trump wasted no time, got right back to work. Yeah, so I'll explain more in just a few minutes. But first, let me go ahead and let's go get this thing started off right with my news tonight, who is leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you are of mine, please stand, remove your hat if you're wearing one like me. Not hat as in like a hat that I'm wearing, if you're just wearing a hat. As I am, and place your hand over your heart and join in with my news in the recitation of the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic of which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, and thank you very much for that wonderful rendition, my news. So if you would like to hear your rendition of the pledge played here on the program, all you need to do is record yourself reciting the pledge in your style. And once you have that file, whether it's an audio file, video file, whatever kind of file, all you need to do is take that and attach it to an email and then send that email to fans, F-A-N-S, at AmericanPerspective.online. That's fans, F-A-N-S, at AmericanPerspective.online. And I will get you into the rotation as soon as, well, we'll say humanly possible. All right. Oh, tonight's headline sponsor is, as soon as I can bring it up here, because, yeah, that's right. That'll work. Right here. TheFlagShirt.com. Now, as you can see, I wear these shirts. I wear these wonderful patriotic shirts, and I don't make them myself. That would be way too labor intensive. So what I do is I get them from theflagshirt.com. And you can too. You can head on over to theflagshirt.com and check out all of their patriotic styles, men's, women's, kids, and as well as accessories that are all red, white, and blue, like our wonderful flag. They've got their best sellers for spring up right now, where you can click the Shop Now button and check out all of their spring styles. Look at that spring dress. Trying to get out of the way. Look at the spring dress for the ladies. That's kind of nice. But head on over to theflagshirt.com, and if you purchase $75 or more at their site, they will give you free shipping. But I know not everybody can purchase $75 or more, or even wants to purchase $75 or more of the product. So I'm going to help you out. All you need to do is go to flagshirt.americanperspective.online. That's flagshirt.americanperspective.online, and you will be presented with a code that you can copy and paste into the promo box at checkout at theflagshirt.com and get yourself $5 off your order. Go to flagshirt.americanperspective.online, grab that coupon code, copy and paste it into the promo code box at checkout at theflagshirt.com, and get yourself $5 off your order on American Perspective. That's theflagshirt.com, where you can go and get yourself patriotized. Oh, 3 Chevy says, if Betsy could make a flag, Rick could make a shirt. Well, I hate to tell you this, buddy, but my stitching ain't all that great. Although I did go through home ec. I tried to make a stuffed horse at one point. Turned out it kind of looked more like a dog than a horse. But anyway, it was my first attempt. And it was hand sewn too, by the way. It wasn't done by a machine. It was hand sewn. So, but yeah, there's no way. There is absolutely no way. And Betsy was I think she was, I can't remember if she was a seamstress or an embroiderer or exactly what she was, but that's how she made her living. So yeah, that she had, as Buddy points out, she had very little competition. She might have been an upholsterer too, come to think about it. I seem to recall there might have been something like that as well. But anyway, all right, enough of that. Let's get on with the program. So obviously, there's a little bit of a fallout from what happened the other night after Trump's address to joint session of Congress. I'm not calling it the State of the Union because that isn't what it is. That wasn't what it is. But the big highlight, or low light, I should say, of the night was when Al Green stood up and started making all kinds of noise at the president and saying things like, he didn't get a mandate to remove Medicare or Medicaid, whatever it was that he was saying. Well, I mean, Trump isn't planning on doing all of that anyway. He's leaving it alone. That's just the way that it works. But he also stated, meaning Al, Mr. Green, also stated that when he left the chamber for doing what he did, that he was going to take whatever consequences were going to happen. And well, it's kind of interesting, but a particular Democrat leader didn't want anyone to really know whether or not he supported what Al Green did. No surprise here. This in the Daily Caller, Chuck Schumer repeatedly avoids answering whether he supported Al Green in disrupting the Trump speech. Let's take a listen to good old Chucky and see what he has to say about the whole thing.
It was like 4 minutes into the speech when Congressman Al Green was yelling at the podium and he was escorted out. What was going through your head as you heard the congressman yelling?
Well, look, the bottom line is lots of people are frustrated, but the best way to protest what Trump is doing what we are doing and many senators and many congressmen are doing, and that is organizing against these horrible policies of calling Social Security a Ponzi scheme and then slashing
would you rather that Congressman
So here's
Green,
what we're John, here's what we're doing.
Would you rather that he not yell?
Here, let me just say, the best answer, in my judgment, is to organize. So I put a call together last week with our activists. I thought 300-400 people would get on the phone. 3,000 people got on the phone. And what we all decided was we're going to focus our energy on the 6 Republican Congress members from New York, because they hold the key to stopping these horrible policies. As you know, in the House, all you need 1 or 2. In the Senate, you need 3 or 4. We don't have Republican senators in New York, but in other states there are. And the best way to organize and protest is to organize. Organizing is hard, but it's effective, and that's what we're doing.
Well, let me ask a different way. Would you rather see Democrats more in line with what Senator Alyssa Slotkin was saying, or more in line with what Congressman Al Green and people holding signs in the audience were doing last night?
Look, I thought Alyssa Slotkin, I chose her because she is such one of our rising stars from the Midwest, won a race, knows how to talk to average folks, to working families, and she did a great job. And I think, again, the American people got more truth in 5 minutes of her speech than with all the lies, with all the misconceptions, with all the things that were departing from reality. When Donald Trump says he's the greatest president after 30 days of chaos and hurting people since George Washington, give me a break.
So, basically what is happening there is that Chucky doesn't want to admit that he was not too pleased, or actually maybe he was pleased, and he just doesn't want to feel the backlash of what happened with Al Green. He refused to answer the question. Okay. He refused to answer the question, which is not any kind of a surprise at all. He not once talked about Green either during the interview. And, yeah, it's, Chucky, you're on the wrong end of this, dude. Totally. You and the Democrats are completely on the wrong end of this entire situation, because 80%, this was a CNN poll conducted by SSRS on Tuesday, found that 80% of the largely Republican audience that viewed the speech felt Green's disruption was inappropriate. Yep. We all felt that it was inappropriate. Except for the ones that are complete, utter morons anyway, like Charlemagne. Not going to finish that off. But he apparently praised Green for his actions on Wednesday and asserted that additional Democrats should have joined him. Yeah. Charlemagne said, I don't mind that kind of disruption. I actually wish that the Democrats would have been more disruptive. I didn't know you could kick people out for that, though. I believe Democrats really dropped the ball there to make more of a statement. Because Al Green is an old man, he got a cane. Okay, English, he has a cane. Anyway, I feel like when he stood up and he was disruptive and he made that noise, more Democrats should have stood up with him, because they can't kick everybody out, right? They weren't going to kick everybody out. Over half the side was Republicans. So, yeah, they weren't going to kick everybody out there. Charlemagne. Oh, but anyway, well, Al Green went ahead, and the Republican-held House went ahead and censored him. Or censured, I should say, not censor, but censured him. And, well, to a lot of Democrats' surprise, 10 moderate Democrats joined the Republican push to punish Al Green. And that, of course, turned in the House into a bit of chaos for that. Yeah, 10 Democrats joined Republicans in voting for the measure. Green himself voted present, along with first-term Representative Shomari Figures, who is from Alabama. House Minority Whip Tom Emmer, Republican from Minnesota, told Fox Digital Al Green's childish outburst. Yeah, childish for sure. Yep. Childish outburst exposed the chaos and dysfunction within the Democrat Party since President Trump's overwhelming win in November and his success in office thus far. It's not surprising that 198 Democrats refused to support Green's censure, given their history of radical inflammatory rhetoric fueled by Trump derangement syndrome. Yeah. Before the formal censure could actually be read out to Green, however, Democrats upended the House floor proceedings by gathering with the Texas Democrat and started singing "We Shall Overcome." Speaker Johnson was forced to call the House into recess after failing multiple times to quell the protest. So decorum even further eroded afterward, including several Democrats, including squad member Representative Ayanna Pressley, engaging in a heated exchange with Republicans, including first-term Rep. Ryan McKenzie from Pennsylvania. The 10 Democrats who voted to censure Green are Representatives Ami Bera, Ed Case, Jim Costa, not Jim Acosta, Jim Costa, Lauren Gillen, Jim Himes, Chrissy Houlihan, Marcy Kaptur, Jared Moskowitz, Marie Glusenkamp Perez, and Tom Suzy. Republicans raced to introduce competing resolutions to censure Green on Wednesday, with 3 separate texts being drafted within hours of each other. Fox News Digital was told that Representative Dan Newhouse, whose resolution got a vote on the House floor Thursday morning, had reached out to Johnson about a censure resolution immediately after Trump's speech ended on Tuesday. Meanwhile, the House Freedom Caucus aimed to make good on a threat to censure any Democrat who protested Trump's speech, and Representative Troy Nehls from Texas crafted his own censure resolution against Green that got more than 30 House GOP co-sponsors. So, yeah. Anyway, now keep in mind, I mean, a censure basically is like one step above being completely thrown out. But I've heard tell that that some Republicans are actually looking at potentially expelling him from Congress. So, yeah, they are looking at potentially expelling him. So, we'll see what happens over this, but, I mean, again, being censured does not do anything for you because, I mean, let's face it, Rashida Tlaib, former Representative Jamal Bowman, Adam Schiff, those are all people that have been censured, and it's not doing anything. Hasn't done anything to them. There was also calls, too, by the way, for him to get removed from any of his committees that he may have been on. Don't know where that went, but there were some calls that were looking for that. But, I mean, again, at least he is receiving some sort of punishment for that childish display. Petulant children that the leftists are. So anyway, all right. Well, we've had a little bit of a revelation with regard to the Afghanistan withdrawal, and in specific, the individual that has been brought to the United States to be held for trial for for his part in the murder of the 13 service members at Abbey Gate. This, according to LifeZet. Okay. Recent revelations on Afghanistan withdrawal further tarnish Biden-Harris's administration image. Okay. Well, there was an affidavit that was released yesterday that revealed that Mohammed Sharifullah, I don't even know if I'm pronouncing it correctly, An alleged key figure behind the 2021 Abbey Gate suicide bombing in Afghanistan that killed 13 American service members had been released from prison just 2 weeks prior to the attack. Wait, he was released from prison just 2 weeks prior? So I guess the timing itself, according to the piece here, coincides with the Taliban's takeover of Bagram, which resulted in the release of thousands of prisoners following the Biden-Harris administration's decision to basically run and abandon the facility. The affidavit, which was released by the Trump Department of Justice, states that Sharifullah was imprisoned in Afghanistan from approximately 2019 until about 2 weeks before the August 26, 2021 bombing at Hamid Karzai International Airport's Abbey Gate. It doesn't specify from which prison he was released. Reports from the New York Times at the time confirmed that on July 1st of 2021, the Biden-Harris administration ordered the U.S. forces to withdraw from Bagram. And again, I'm sorry, folks, but this was probably the most stupid decision, especially in modern history. But anyway, so just 6 weeks later, Taliban fighters took control of the base and released thousands of detainees, including senior Taliban and Al-Qaeda figures. According to the affidavit, nearly 2 weeks after the Taliban's release of prisoners, an ISIS-K suicide bomber allegedly assisted by Sharifullah carried out the attack that resulted in the death of the 13 U.S. service members. Injuries to dozens more during the chaotic evacuation of Kabul. Yeah. So anyway, yeah. I mean, what else are we going to find out about this past administration as to how many times they basically screwed shit up? I'm just so frustrated. I'm glad that we got the adults are back in control for sure. So anyway, so the Biden-Harris administration, of course, has maintained that the withdrawal was based on an agreement made under the Trump administration the first term. Okay. Which had set a timeline for U.S. troop removal. However, Trump officials have repeatedly argued that the agreement was conditional and that they would not have abandoned Bagram Air Base or allowed such a chaotic evacuation. Critics from both parties have pointed to the decision to withdraw from Bagram as a key mistake, arguing that conducting evacuations from the air base instead of the Kabul airport would have provided a much more secure alternative and potentially prevented the conditions that led to the deadly attack. Yeah. So, yeah. As 3 Chevy points out, according to Biden's old boss, Obama, leave it to Joe to F things up. So, yeah. Anyway. So, yeah, that was the guy that President Trump announced his capture, by the way. So, anyway. All right. Well, a couple of other people, or a few other people, got a warning. We'll just call it a warning for now. From the Anna Paulina Luna side of the house. So they've been holding this committee where they've been talking to mayors of sanctuary cities. And Congress has been talking to them in particular. And Representative Anna Paulina Luna dropped a bombshell, I'm going to say, So the mayors of New York City, Denver, Boston, and Chicago were all there. And, of course, the Republican-led committee accused the mayors of aiding and abetting illegal immigrants, illegal aliens. All right. Despite their argument that they were in full compliance with all applicable laws. Now, Luna was pressing Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson on his responsibility to transfer individuals into U.S. ICE custody. She asked, oh, well, wait a minute. Let's just go ahead and take a listen as to what she was talking about right here.
So you don't believe that banning the transfer of individuals into ICE custody for the purpose of civil immigration enforcement encourages illegal immigration into Chicago? Or how about agencies, or agents not being able to stop, arrest, or detain individuals based solely on their immigration status or administrative warrant?
So we comply with all laws, local, state, and federal.
To me, after this line of questioning, it's very clear that these policies that you have all implicated are active and alive and well in your cities, are in direct violation with U.S. Title 8 Code subsection 1324, and it is a federal offense. But you all speak about a broken immigration system, and yet here you guys are aiding and abetting in that entire process. I want to be very clear about something. Open border policies, which is something that you guys are talking about, hurts people on both sides, meaning the people that are coming here illegally and then American citizens as well. I do not think you guys are bad people, but I think that you are ideologically misled, which is why, unfortunately, based on your responses, I'm all going to be criminally referring you to the Department of Justice for investigation. And as soon as I leave here, these will be going over to Pam Bondi. I'm not doing that in an effort to bully you guys, but I do believe that your policies are hurting the American people, and you can make that known with the evidence that you can present to the Department of Justice. But if you guys continue doing what you're doing, you're not going to help anyone. You're going to hurt more people. And that's exactly why I'm tired of it. The American people are tired of it. And Chairman, I yield my time.
Would you yield your last minute?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Oh, I don't think they went to Congress thinking they were going to get that thrown at them. Oh, well, she's a little bit of a firecracker, that one, for sure. Well, I mean, if you recognize that that 1324 statute, Tom Homan has been tossing that around for a while. Okay. Tom Homan has been talking about how they are potentially obstructing the removal of illegal aliens and that would be a bit of a problem. Now, he was referring to AOC and any other, in particular, the Denver mayor at the time. But, yeah, these people they're just, I'm telling you, we got new sheriffs. We've got new people in charge, and those people have, believe it or not, they have the law on their side. Now, whether or not the DOJ is going to act on her referrals generally tends to remain to be seen. But anyway, oh, this is, I'm telling you, these next 4 years are going to be, if nothing else, entertaining for certain. We're going to see a lot of changes, I think, in terms of these kinds of things. So, well, speaking of the border and the illegal aliens and all of the wonderful things that come along with them, Trump has decided and is restarting the building of the border wall. The portions, especially of the border wall that Biden said that he was going to stop. And in order to kick that off, Vice President J.D. Vance made the announcement, and it looks like he's actually at the border. in from what I can tell. But let's go ahead and listen to what J.D. Vance has to say with regards to this entire situation.
All right. Well, good afternoon, everybody, and I appreciate you being here. It's great to be here. It's great to talk to some of the incredible people that we have, both at the local level, the Texas state level, and also, of course, our federal border patrol, who are doing so many good things to keep us safe. And I have some bad news and some good news. And the bad news is that because of what Joe Biden did at the southern border for 4 years, we had record increases in migrant crime, in fentanyl deaths, and in just floods and floods of people who shouldn't be in our country who came into the United States of America. We also have a number of ways in which the cartels became more advanced, better warfighters, because Joe Biden opened up the American southern border and allowed the cartels to turn it into their playground. Now, that's the bad news. The good news is, as President Trump said last night at the State of the Union, it turns out we didn't need new laws. We didn't need fancy legislation. We just needed a new president of the United States, and thank God that's exactly what we have. And I will say that the most heartening message that I take away from my visit here at the Texas border is that the number of Border Patrol agents who have come up to me and said thank you, or said because of this, we've cut the number of border crossings from 1,500 a day to 30 a day. Or the people who have come up and said we've seen a reduction in 85% of the number of people who are dying at the American southern border. And every single day that we continue to keep this border safe, that means less migrant crime, that means less fentanyl coming into our communities, that means more safety and security for the people of the United States of America. And of course, we know the border problem, the border crisis under Biden's administration was a national crisis, but it acutely affected the communities right here. And I've already heard heartbreaking stories of people who are still picking up the pieces, local mayors who are still dealing with the budgetary consequences of what the Joe Biden administration allowed to happen at the American southern border. And that, too, is something that President Trump is going to help address, help fix, and help solve. Now, I wanted to bring Secretary Hegseth and Director Gabbard at DNI down here because, one, I obviously enjoy their company, and it's good to have them down here with me looking around today. But unfortunately, we know that because of what's happened, the border crisis has become a matter of national intelligence, and it's also become something that requires the Department of Defense to engage with. I was talking with Paul Perez earlier. The drone technology that the cartels are using requires, unfortunately, a military response and military support. So it was important for Secretary Hegseth to see what's going on, because we know that the millions and millions of people who were let in over the last 4 years, many of them are connected to foreign terrorists. It's important for our leader of national intelligence to get a sense of what's here on the ground. So before we take questions from the press, and all of us are willing to take questions, I want to give Secretary Hegseth and then Director Gabbard an opportunity to say a few words themselves.
So that's what they were doing down at the border. And as he said, all it took was to change presidents in order to make things work. So the announcement, of course, was that the border wall upgrade construction project that was canceled by President Joe Biden is now back underway in the Texas Rio Grande Valley. So U.S. Border Patrol Chief Michael Banks announced that the Trump administration ordered the restart of the canceled border wall upgrade project along the Texas border with Mexico. And as you can see here in the picture, the headline, or the starting picture, I should say, in Breitbart, where I'm getting this information, there's a border wall with people, construction workers, that they are putting it in place. They are back in business. So, yeah, they're putting it together. So Banks made a statement and said that these panels were originally planned for installation during the prior Trump administration, but that the contracts were canceled by the Biden administration. The panels going in today will replace the 6-foot guardrails and will provide impedance and denial capabilities in support of the president's recent executive orders to ensure complete operational control of the southern border. So there we go. The border wall is going back up. And there's Pete Hegseth. Pete Hegseth is taking photos, or took photos of him and President J.D. Vance and the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, are all flying around in a helicopter, it looks like, down at the border. So, yeah. So there you go. And Tulsi Gabbard also had something to say here at the border. Let's take a listen.
As Director of National Intelligence, there are a number of areas where we are focused. The president talked about in his speech, over 21 million people have come across our borders illegally under Joe Biden's administration. There are many of them that we don't know who they are. They have not been vetted. We don't know where they are. I'll give you one quick example of one of the problems that we are getting after. From Central Asia, there were over 4,000 people who came across our borders using an ISIS-affiliated network. Our National Counterterrorism Center went through and identified those individuals. There were hundreds of them who were either known terrorists or associated with known terrorists. That information was provided to the Biden administration. You may remember in some of the news, a little over 100 of those people were arrested in 2024. Of those who were arrested, only 8 were either deported or remained in custody. Only 8. The rest of them were released back into our country. Where are they? What are they doing? What may they be plotting? This is just the beginning. There are many, many areas that we need to stay very focused on, working with Department of Homeland Security, working with the FBI to ensure that we're keeping the American people safe. Our Counterterrorism Center is working on making sure that we have that single source for vetting so that we can figure out who is actually in our country and identify those who pose a threat and get them removed.
So it is apparently a national security threat. Well, I mean, come on. It's not even apparent. We knew it was. So anyway, yeah, even Greg Abbott was visited by J.D. Vance, it looks like, at Eagle Pass. They were all there. So yeah, there we go. The border wall is back in business, which is absolutely fantastic, to be honest with you, at least in my esteemed thought process. Well, Trump is now moving forward on yet another item that he has stated that he wants to do. And this one, I wholeheartedly agree with him because, again, this particular maneuver is another one of those unconstitutional creations of a department that doesn't need to be there because the Constitution doesn't cover this. Well, it's been reported in the Daily Wire that Trump is preparing to sign the order to facilitate the closure of the Department of Education. He is reportedly set to sign the executive order. A draft of that particular order to begin dismantling the department has been prepared and could be signed sometime. Well, it was supposed to be sometime today, according to the Wall Street Journal. Trump has repeatedly said that he would like to shut down the department and return education fully over to the states. For those of you who may not be constitutionally literate, that is exactly where education is supposed to be. The two parts of the Constitution that you should really, as an American, you should be well-versed and familiar with the entire thing. But what you should do also is make sure that you read Article 1, Section 8. Article 1, Section 8, which covers the particular items that Congress is supposed to be writing laws and legislation in order to support. Then you need to read Amendment 10. If you read those two together, you will have a clear picture of exactly what the federal government is supposed to be doing and what the federal government is not supposed to be doing. Because the 10th Amendment basically says that if it's not in the Constitution specifically, and also not specifically prohibited to the states by the Constitution, then everything belongs to the states and the people, respectively. That's it. Now, you can't get any simpler than that. Because, and this is why I always laugh when people are like, oh, you're not a lawyer. No, you don't need to be a lawyer in order to read our Constitution, in order to understand what the Constitution states and doesn't state. It's kind of like reading the Bible. You don't need to have a theology degree in order to read the Bible. Same thing goes with the Constitution. You don't need to have a law degree in order to sit there and read what the Constitution tells you and says to you. So, anyway, he made a statement that basically says the experiment of controlling American education through federal programs and dollars and the unaccountable bureaucrats those programs and dollars support has failed our children, our teachers, and our families. This was all part of a draft order obtained by the Journal and labeled pre-decisional reads. The draft directs the Secretary of Education, Linda McMahon, to take all necessary steps to facilitate the closure of the Education Department to the maximum extent appropriate and permitted by law. So McMahon, who was confirmed on Monday, released a letter that same day on the department's final mission, promising to restore the rightful role of state oversight in education and to end the overreach from Washington. She said in the statement, as you are all aware, President Trump nominated me to take the lead on one of the most momentous campaign promises to families. My vision is aligned with the president's to send education back to the states and empower all parents to choose an excellent education for their children. Trump said at a September rally in Wisconsin, he says, I say it all the time, I'm dying to get back to do this. We will ultimately eliminate the federal Department of Education. We will drain the government education swamp and stop the abuse of your taxpayer dollars to indoctrinate America's youth with all sorts of things that you don't want to have our youth hearing. According to legal experts, though, eliminating the Education Department would require a filibuster-proof 60-vote majority in the Senate, the Journal noted. I think it could actually be taken up by the Constitution and sent through the court system, too, if that were to fail. Because, again, as I said, the Constitution itself does not have education as a requirement. Same thing with health care. You know, even though Trump doesn't want to touch the health care part of everything that's going on, it could be handled in the courts. It could eventually end up in front of the Supreme Court, which would be basically, hey, the Constitution says this isn't a thing that the federal government needs to be worried about. Yeah. So there you go. So under Trump, the Department of Education itself has already taken steps to end the promotion of diversity, equity, and inclusion programs and radical gender ideology. So, yeah. Anyway. There he goes. He is taking care of business, just like he promised and said that he would. Well, last night we talked a little bit about tariffs, and I showed you that video. And as you know, China was one of the three countries that Trump was focused on with regards to tariffs. And China took a different tact than what Canada and Mexico did. Canada and Mexico decided to hit us, or attempt to hit us back. Now, keep in mind, by the way, both Mexico and Canada have, well, Canada not specifically, but like the automakers, for an example, have got a 1 month reprieve. Mexico has been working with us, and President Sheinbaum has been talking to President Trump. So President Trump has suspended, for the moment, for temporary, the tariffs on Mexico. Canada decided to do something different, and Trudeau decided to act like he had a pair of balls, even though I don't think he did. But he tried to talk tough to Trump, and so I don't think that's going to go over very well. I have a feeling it's going to turn into just like the whole Zelensky thing. But anyway, all of that stuff aside, China decided not to necessarily go direct at Trump, let's say. China came out with we'll call it a flex. They made a statement and they claimed that China itself is ready for any type of war, and that's the quote, for any type of war following Donald Trump's 10% tariff increase. On Tuesday, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Lin Jian, however it's pronounced, responded to Trump's move, claiming that the fentanyl issue is a flimsy excuse to raise tariffs on Chinese imports. Lin blamed the fentanyl crisis on the U.S. itself, outright rejecting claims that China bears any responsibility. Instead, he insisted that China has helped the U.S. address the issue. He made the comments here that instead of recognizing our efforts, the U.S. has sought to vilify and shift the blame to China and is seeking to pressure and blackmail China with tariff hikes. They've been punishing us for helping them. This is not going to solve the U.S.'s problems and will undermine our counter-narcotics dialogue and cooperation. Let me reiterate that intimidation does not scare us. Bullying does not work on us. Pressure, coercion, or threats are not the right way of dealing with China. Anyone using maximum pressure on China is picking the wrong guy and miscalculating. And he concluded by saying that China is prepared for any type of war. Well, he continued and said, if the U.S. has other agendas in mind, and if war is what the U.S. wants, be it a tariff war, a trade war, or any other type of war, we're ready to fight till the end. We urge the U.S. to stop being domineering and return to the right track of dialogue and cooperation at an early date. Now, in response to the 20% tariff on Chinese imports, China imposed a 15% tariff on U.S. agricultural goods. Well, true to the administration's stance on all of this, Pete Hegseth was on Fox and Friends, and he pretty much basically said that we're prepared. So that's the Secretary of Defense saying we're prepared. He goes, those who long for peace must prepare for war. That's why we're rebuilding our military, which, by the way, I saw an article that the Air Force's recruitment numbers are up. Same thing with the Army recruitments, and I would guess across the board. But anyway, I took a side note there, back to the piece. That's why we're reestablishing deterrence in the warrior ethos. We live in a dangerous world with powerful ascendant countries with very different ideology. Heggs has noted that China has been rapidly increasing its technology and defense spending, and he also stated that Trump understands that peace comes through strength. Heggs added, if we want to deter war with China or others, we have to be strong. He said, my job as the Secretary of Defense is to make sure we're ready. We need the defense spending, the capabilities, the weapons, the posture in the Indo-Pacific, which is something we're very much focused. Now, keep in mind, too, okay, that the whole idea of revamping and kicking off our shipbuilding capabilities is also a direct reflection on the administration's stance in terms of toward our Navy, and it in a, albeit a bit late, response to the buildup of the Chinese Navy. Okay. So, yeah, we're heading into what is essentially going to be a, I think, a buildup of our capabilities in terms of our military capabilities to be part of the essentially the most lethal fighting force that the world has ever seen in all of this. So now also too, on another front, Donald Trump has taken a hardline stance with yet another, shall we say, rogue regime. Here in the Daily Wire, Trump sends message to Hamas, quote, "This is your last warning." President Donald Trump issued what he said would be his final warning to Hamas on Wednesday, saying that there will be hell to pay unless they immediately release all remaining hostages. All remaining hostages. Trump made the remarks after meeting with a group of hostages that had been recently released from Gaza after well over a year in captivity. He said on Truth, I'm assuming, because I know that he doesn't do it on X. He said, "I am sending Israel everything it needs to finish the job. Not a single Hamas member will be safe if you don't do as I say. Release the hostages now, or there will be hell to pay later." Trump, you got to love the guy. He says, "Shalom Hamas." And shalom, for those that don't know, means both hello and goodbye. And Trump says, "Shalom Hamas" means hello and goodbye. You can choose. Trump posted the message to the Islamic terrorist group: "Release all the hostages now, not later, and immediately return all of the dead bodies of those people you murdered, or it is over for you. Only sick and twisted people keep bodies, and you're sick and twisted," he continued. "I am sending Israel everything it needs to finish the job. Not a single Hamas member will be safe if you don't do as I say." Trump highlighted his meeting with the recently released hostages, saying that their lives have been destroyed because of the trauma that they have experienced. This is your last warning, Trump said, for the leadership. Now is the time to leave Gaza while you still have a chance. Also, to the people of Gaza, a beautiful future awaits, but not if you hold hostages. If you do, you are dead. Make a smart decision, he concludes. Release the hostages now, or there will be hell to pay later. The statement comes after Axios reported earlier in the day that the administration has been holding direct talks with Hamas behind the scenes. The first time the U.S. has ever directly engaged with the terrorist organization, according to Axios. The talks, which have taken place in recent weeks in Doha, are being led on the U.S. side by U.S. Presidential Envoy for Hostage Affairs, Adam Boehler. Yeah. Well, we'll see if this does anything. To be honest with you, I don't know if it will, but yeah. Like I said, we'll see if this does anything. But it clearly demonstrates, folks, that the adults are back in control and are back in the power. So there we go. Anyway, so yeah. All right, folks. One last thing. Hey, if you have a question for Whiskey for Saturday night's show, that would be awesome if you would submit it. I know I already have one or two from Buddy still left in the hopper, but just saying, throw it out there. Please send them in. Send them off to fans, FANS, at AmericanPerspective.online. And one more message to U.S. Abby Girl. I did not get your Pledge of Allegiance, so if you are going to send it to me, send it to the same place. Fans, FANS, at AmericanPerspective.online. Also, too, don't forget, if you haven't already, head on over to rumble.com, get yourself an account. It is free to sign up, and once you are signed up and sign in, make sure that you search up the American Perspective channel, hit that green follow button to get notified every time that I go live. We will see you, hopefully, tomorrow night, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern Time on a Friday night edition of American Perspective. Have a great rest of your evening, and, well, try not to get blown away if you're on the East Coast. Anyway, yeah, we'll see you tomorrow night. Have a great rest of your evening, and good night, everybody.